We need to ask everyone who subscribes to the show, please listen to the podcast when it drops and give us a little discussion about it. It really helps. Also, we want to thank our sponsor, Hydrolyte. Go to the banner on drdrew.com for details. If you click on the drdrew.com Hydrolyte banner, we have a 30% discount for those particular vendors on the Amazon site. Also, a thanks goes out to alliant.edu for those support. A great program, great school. Check them out if you're thinking about training in psychology or you're looking for care. Great place to go. Support our sponsors so we can bring you more weekly infusions. Hey, Dr. Drew here, and this is just a reminder that the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care or medical evaluation. This is purely for entertainment and education. We hope you learned something, but see your doctor, get proper medical care. All right, it is fall and your immune system is about to get tested, everybody. Not only does the changing weather mark the start of cold and flu season, it's also back to school time when kids become walking petri dishes. While catching something may be inevitable, there is no excuse for letting yourself get dehydrated in the process. So when you're wiped out with cold or flu, the first piece of advice, always to drink plenty of fluids, but we seem to forget that. Now, once you've started feeling dehydrated, it's already too late for water or sports drinks. Rapid rehydration requires the proper balance of sodium, glucose, and water, and nothing gives this like Hydrolyte. Hydrolyte's formulation is based on established, proven science, and it is the simply best rehydration product I've found in this country. Hydrolyte comes in great flavors, orange, berry, lemonade, and it's available in a pre-mixed drink, a powder, or what I prefer, those effervescence tablets. You just drop in a glass of water or a bottle of water, off you go. It's like your own portable IV, but you can do it enterally. Compared to sports drinks, Hydrolyte delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes with 75% less sugar. Hydrolyte solutions are appropriate for all ages, and each bottle or package includes easy-to-use, easy-to-follow instructions. You can find Hydrolyte at Rite Aid or online at Amazon.com. And for a limited time, our listeners can save 30% on Hydrolyte. Just click the banner on our site, drdrew.com, 30% off. Great deal. Do it.
Welcome to Weekly Infusion with Dr. Drew Pinsky and Dr. Bruce Heischober. Weekly Infusion addresses medically related topics. It's in the know, entertaining, and everything you want to know about health and medicine. Now may I present to you the very wonderful Dr. Drew and Dr. Bruce.
Hey, welcome to another Weekly Infusion. Bruce, here we are, buddy.
Good to be here.
Excellent. Got a bunch of questions we're going to get to. In just a minute, we're going to have our guest pop on in here. She is Mica St. She's a 5-time world and international boxing champion. She's a founder of the Knowledge is Powder, El Sabor es Poder.
Oh, good work.
It's a foundation to empower individuals suffering from mental illness, homelessness, addiction, and poverty. She has a heartbreaking story about her own son and mental illness. I'll let her tell that story. She will be here in a while. Got a bunch of questions, though. Okay, when Chris Cornell died, a bottle of prednisone was found in his room. These death scenes released on TMZ. I know firsthand prednisone can cause manic behavior, make it impossible to sleep, etc. Why was prednisone never brought up?
It's not a drug of abuse.
Well,
the press, why wasn't it brought up?
She should know that I did look at that pretty carefully, and I am sort of involved a little bit in that case. And the prednisone did not help matters, but trust me, this is from Kurt, from Kurt, it's a male. Kurt, trust me, Kurt, Ativan was the problem.
Right.
Believe me. And his comment was blaming the Ativan was the only minor piece of the puzzle. No, the prednisone is a minor piece of the puzzle. And he'd been on a little burst of it for, I forget why, for his throat or something. And this certainly did not help things. You're right. Going on prednisone, coming off prednisone can affect your mood profoundly.
Right. A lot of people hear prednisone as a steroid, and a lot of people,
corticosteroid.
I think general public, there's a misunderstanding. Corticosteroid and
anabolic steroid. They're very different. They actually go in very different directions. And corticosteroids are very powerful anti-inflammatories, and they're used for asthma and things like that, infections, or huge inflammatory reactions. Often, sometimes even in the setting of infection.
And they help maintain your autonomic nervous system. Because if somebody doesn't have any corticosteroids, then
corticosteroids is a protein chemical. Has lots. If you have Addison's disease, you not
Right.
making much.
But I had a
cortisol.
colleague, and when she would be, and she had collagen vascular, she had like some sort of arthritis, and when she'd get prednisone, and she was an internist, she couldn't sleep, she'd get manicky.
To that point, I had this PRK procedure in my eyes, and they had me on Pred Forte drops, which are these powerful
which you
steroid
absorb.
drops, 4 times a day. And 2 days in, I was like, hey, I feel fantastic. And I thought, I'm having a systemic reaction to this for sure. So it's it goes down your tear duct and you swallow a little bit of it. It's not a lot.
No, it's like beta blockers and eye drops.
Right. But the point is, even that small amount made me a little euphoric and a little hypomanic. And then on the other side of it, 2 days later, I started getting very depressed.
Yeah, withdrawal. No,
it wasn't withdrawal. It just making me depressed by staying on
when you're
it.
taking it.
Yeah,
and
then it tapered down, and then it was more of the same. Our guest is entering right now. We're going to get her set up. You take your time. We're going to do another question while you're setting up here. This is from Jody. My mother just admitted to me, and only me, she's been cutting herself as a way of dealing with her pain. She told me countless times how better off they'd be without her. They have a handicapped brother who's in her care. She has a dependency on pain meds. Oh, my God. That she is prescribed and is afraid she tells her therapist about her cutting habits that she won't get the painkillers anymore. No matter what I do, she ignores me and still continues to cut. I'm afraid even to have her around my 11-month-old twins in fear they will never know her if she does kill herself. So,
borderline?
Yeah, there are multiple things going on there. Yeah.
Addiction.
I mean, this is opiate addiction, right? This is, and that's your main problem. That's the dangerous problem she has. The cutting is really just a bid to relieve unpleasant emotions.
Right.
It's people cut in different ways. They cut to sort of bring themselves back into their body because they feel kind of dissociated and sort of a way of like relieving an aggression. They also cut to dissociate. People who use dissociative mechanisms to manage affect can do so that way. So then the cutting can be addictive too, right? They get a little endorphin release from that. And cutting is not suicidality; they're different things. I think Jody's convinced that she's going to kill herself because she's cutting.
I think she's threatening suicide or bringing up suicide over and over.
Which is the third problem.
Right.
So she is cutting, suicidal, opiate addiction. I mean, these are all different problems. Each has a different management. But the one that needs to be treated first is the opiate addiction.
So intervention or getting somebody involved.
There's a doctor prescribing this. Call that doctor. He or she may not be able to speak to you, but you can leave a message and saying she's threatening suicide. She's strung out. You need to send her to somebody to help her.
Or contact a doctor or an addictionologist that wouldn't prescribe the opiates, because sometimes the doctor
and send her there will not listen otherwise. Right. Well, look, we got our guest sitting down. How are you?
Hello, hi.
This is Mica St. John.
Sorry, I'm late.
I did a little promo on you before you got here. We
awesome.
Just started, so welcome to the program.
Great, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
So,
what'd you say about me?
We said you said you're driving.
All great things.
We said only great things. We said you were a 4 or 5-time world international boxing champion, which is crazy, right?
Thank you. Yes.
And when was the last time you won a championship?
Oh my gosh! Well, my last fight was in New Zealand last year, and then I retired shortly thereafter.
Do you worry about CTE being a boxer?
Oh, wait, every day. I actually joined the Lou Ruvo Brain Institute study for fighters, and my first couple of years, it's a 5-year study, and my first couple of years were a little bit iffy, but they put me on certain exercises, and I started to get a little bit better, but it's a work in progress. Like, it's not something that happens overnight.
So
you just
are they
have to
doing
work
neuro
at it.
testing? They'll look at
yeah. And I can't really tell you, really what they found. But, obviously, I fought over 20 years pro. And that's not including amateur. I started when I was 6 years old. So boxers are suffering concussions on a daily basis because we're sparring.
Really?
Well, we're sparring every day.
Wow.
So it's not like, every day we come home. It's not unusual to have like the nausea, the, feeling out of sorts and the headaches, the migraines. That's not uncommon. And so imagine year after year after year. And for me, like I'm 50 now. And so we're talking like a 40-year career. And to say that I'm going to come out unscathed is
is kind of silly.
You're 50. That had a rejuvenative effect on you.
Yeah, you seem to have aged backwards.
So when women box, do they avoid punching in the face? Because
Never.
also, I mean, seriously,
no, and I've had so much damage, with my eyes and 27 stitches here, 28 here. I mean, broken nose, broken cheeks, but I mean, just everything, and that's just on the outside. I recently had 2 hip replacements. Because in boxing we have a lot of
running and
hip rotation. It's all hip rotation. Right. So yeah, it's very difficult on our bodies. And we always hear about Muhammad Ali, and a lot of attention was focused on him. But he's just one of so many fighters out there that just don't get that attention.
Are boxers that likely to get chronic traumatic encephalopathy? Is it very common?
I don't know, because
you don't hear about it that much.
You don't hear about injuries in boxing at all, right? I mean, it's not talked about.
Was that the culture of boxing, where it's tough and that's that?
I think it's just the culture that a lot of fighters come from. We come from poverty, and I'm no exception. And football players are all coming out of college, and so they're all, they're well protected by the NFL. We don't have a national commission, so we just don't have a lot of protection for us. I mean, like I know you're a friend of my attorney, Mark Garagos, and he handled Mike Tyson for a long time, and his situation. That's the norm. Like a lot of us that don't have, I had an education. I graduated from college, because my family came from Mexico and it was mandatory. But a lot of fighters don't, and they don't take care of their money. They don't know how. And so we're just unprotected. But,
go ahead, Bruce.
Isn't it considered more of a risk that you take? I had an uncle that was a lightweight in the 30s and 40s. He fought main bout at Madison Square Garden. And so I had a fighter in the family, and it was sort of understood. Uncle Mickey, he's punch drunk, and everybody we knew, fighters all sort of got that way, and nobody questioned it. And whereas it seems like football's the first sport where everybody's,
making an issue.
Well, first of all, there's so much money in the NFL. It's a big organization. I don't need to tell you that. And so there's a lot of money going into their publicity, whereas boxers, I don't know. It's just like we just kind of fall under the radar. And
there also aren't so many boxers, and they aren't so many wealthy boxers as in the NFL who can make a bit of a stink.
How many are making what Floyd Mayweather is making?
Yeah.
None.
Have you noticed any memory issues or things like that? Word finding?
Gosh.
Yeah, but I mean, we all have that in our 50s. I'm not kidding. I don't know about you, but
I had that
insane.
in my 20s. Yeah, that started early for me. But no, I've had... yeah, of course I've had issues that go beyond just aging, right?
Because you can't detect it in just general conversation at all.
Probably not. I mean, I hope not yet. I hope never.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I've had so many friends in boxing, over the years, some of my best friends, Tommy Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, so many of them that have endured so much and that are going through this right now. Tommy Hearns right now is just experiencing this, and he's in his 50s, late 50s. So it didn't really start probably until he hit his early 50s. So we don't really know. It's something that happens gradually over time.
All right, now your main sort of focus is the knowledge is power. Tell us about that.
Right. El Saber es Poder. It's my foundation. And actually, I started this foundation back in 2000 when I was in the height of my career because, like I said, my family's from Mexico. And they brought me to this country to have an education, to have a successful career, not in fighting. My mother didn't want me to fight, but I was determined. And so I just felt like that I had to give back. It was my way of giving back. So we first started programs in Mexico, donating to the barrios in Mexico, schools that didn't have electricity or newer technology like the United States. So we brought computers, electricity, internet. And then I started helping the United States. We started with a program in East LA. And Oxnard, and then with the passing of my son, who passed away from schizophrenia.
Yeah, I did. I alluded to that in the intro earlier on the show, but I said that you would tell the story. I would let you a chance to talk about that.
Yeah, my 24-year-old son. I'm a part-timer in Palm Springs, and I loved it so much. I mean, it's just such a. If you've ever been there, it's just such a beautiful, peaceful place. And so I thought it would be a great place for my son to do his art, because he had galleries in Laguna Gallery of Contemporary Art. He was a very talented artist, but he had an artist's mind. He was very.
Did the artistic expressions come after a schizophrenia onset or before?
No, we started noticing, and remember, I had to get a degree in college. That was my one requirement from my mother. So I studied psychology. And so to get extra credit, I was always working in mental health institutions. And so I knew a lot about schizophrenia.
So you knew something was not right.
When my son was very young, I saw signs. Things were not quite right. But he didn't have his first psychotic break until he was 17. And then we hospitalized him, and from there on, it was just a series of hospitals, medication.
Was the substance abuse predating the break? Or?
Substance abuse started, he started self-medicating, probably like a year before the break. And, it just progressively got worse after the psychotic break. When he was on medication, his antipsychotic, I'm telling you, he was my beautiful, loving, just wonderful, energetic child. It was when he would run away from home and get off his meds and get on drugs, and he would end up in jails, hospitals. It was a horrific, painful cycle. He was addicted to meth. Yeah, that's. But I don't. I really try to steer away from trying to I don't want people to think that drugs leads to schizophrenia, because drugs do not cause schizophrenia. It can trigger it. There are many things that can trigger it. But this was an underlying issue, and he was simply self-medicating, like so many of them do. And right now, we have a program that we work with the homeless and the mentally ill in Palm Springs and Santa Monica. And trust me, these people are self-medicating. If you can deal with the illness first, then the addiction, that's my opinion. That's where I have the most success. And I'm spending my days and sometimes my nights with the homeless people. So I don't like it when people try to tell me about, and me and Mark go into this too, how Measure H and all this money that is spent to save the homeless and more housing. It's not a housing issue.
Why can't they see that?
I don't
understand.
Insane. And, I love Eric Garcetti. I mean, he sponsored my very first program in East LA, in Echo Park. So I just, I adore him. But I don't get it. I don't get it.
How would you characterize it?
I would love for these politicians to just camp out with these homeless people for a good month and really see the mentality. I'm with them. They're my friends. They're not just people I help. They're literally my friends. We eat together. We go eat together. We go to the gym together. I have a facility in Palm Springs. We're friends. And they're not, a lot of them have access to housing. I have some that sleep on my front sidewalk in the facility because we're not an overnight place. But, obviously sometimes I sneak them in. But some of them have vouchers for housing. And have loving families. My son had a loving family and 2 beautiful homes to choose from. But he was homeless.
Preferred to be on the street, yeah.
Right, because they're ill, because a lot of them are suffering from paranoia. They think the government's out to get them, so they got to go hide. My son had this fear that his shoes were out to get him and the shoes were talking to him. So he would throw away his shoes, take off his clothes, and he'd end up, walking half naked down, Skid Row. So yeah, it's a mental health issue. It's obviously not housing because measure age. We spent, what was that, 256 million, and housing and homelessness increased.
And so how do we address the mental health shortfall? And, and by the way, it's patients that sort of don't want the mental health help too. That's the other part.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I had to get conservatorship over my son. I had to 50 him many times. And the last time I did, he passed away. He took his life in one of these facilities. But that was negligence. The facility wasn't giving him his antipsychotic.
Didn't do the checks.
They weren't doing their checks according to what we saw in surveillance. They were falsifying the records. They were found guilty by Department of Healthcare Services. And this was one of many deaths and one of many violations that have been swept under the rug. And that's what I'm fighting now. I go to all the public hearings on Temple Street, and I fight Department of Mental Health, Department of Healthcare Services, the Mental Health Commission, LA boards, supervisors. I'm a big pain in their ass.
You fight them on what front?
I'm just constantly at the hearings telling them what needs to be done, what they're not doing. I'm demanding answers.
Department of Health's gotten better in the last 10 years.
Because of Director John Sharon.
They've gotten really good, I thought. Compared to when I used to work with them a lot, when I was like, they were just like an encumbrance that just sort of was hanging around. Now they're like active, they have outreach, they're part of the solution.
Well, John Sharon came in, who took over for
This is
Marv.
Los Angeles we're talking about.
Yes. So Dr. Sharon took over for Marv Southard, and Marv Southard was there when my son passed. But this was the main problem I had with Department of Mental Health was, and this was before John Sharon was there. I was not told the truth about these facilities, and I felt really betrayed because I had done so many talks for Department of Mental Health. I was out there promoting them, and they're so wonderful. And when they put my son in this facility, I told them. In the beginning, I said, something's really wrong with this facility. Like, I call and they've already got my son's log done for the day, and the day's not even over. And they were, you're just a worrywart, and you're just an overbearing parent, helicopter mom. And I said, no, there's something really wrong. And I went and I took him out. And the hospital said, you take him out, he's AMA. I said, I don't give a fuck about about your AMA. I smell a rat in here, and my son's out of here. Anyway, I took him out. They said I was, again, like DMH said, I'm overbearing. I'm a helicopter parent. Need to put him back in. And my husband agreed with them. And
with them?
Yeah, because he knew. He knew. Well, and we were divorced. But see, he knew that he was a mama's boy. I was very protective of my child. And so a lot of that got into my head, like, well, maybe they're right. I do coddle him. So I put him back in. And a month later, he was found.
So he was in there a month before this happened?
He was in there a couple months, yeah.
And so what is needed? What is your idea of a solution to this problem?
We need oversight, for one. Oh, my God. Transparency, which is what I'm fighting for now.
But now you're talking about facilities. Do we need more facilities?
I think we have enough facilities. We just don't have enough good facilities.
So it's all those people on the streets in Hollywood and Los Angeles, that we have a place to put them?
I believe that we have enough outpatient places to put them. To get them help. I don't see that they need housing. I think the first and foremost thing that we need to, I'll tell you what I do in Palm Springs, which really works. Santa Monica is, I work at the shelter called Step Up. So they have a whole community already in there. But I'll tell you what we do in Palm Springs, because that's my facility. I have, for example, a schizophrenic student named Johnny, who's just like so adorable. Here's how I met Johnny. I'm pulling up to the Path, our local homeless shelter, because we're located right next door. So we have Department of Mental Health, the Path shelter, and my facility.
Nice.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah, a community of love and support, which is what they need. So
you don't see a lot of people on the street in Palm Springs.
You do.
I don't.
Well,
that's guys compared to here.
Well, where are you in Palm Springs?
Well, I'm just saying the point is you're taking care of business. You know what I mean? People there's something going right in Palm Springs. Even though I'm sure it's not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting perfection. I just am looking for there not to be armies out there on the street.
Right. Well, so when I came there, I came there as just another tourist, and that's when I noticed like the homeless problem. And then after my son passed, I decided to do something about it. But so I met Johnny he came running out of the bushes, which is where a lot of them live in the desert. And he was like, and here's this big fat guy, he comes out of the bushes and he's completely stark naked, jumps on the hood of my car.
Oh my.
Screaming upset at he's, I'm going to kill you.
Oh, no.
And of course I'm like, oh my God, it's pitch dark at night. And the shelter says, yeah, we can't take him. He's too like crazy. And we recommend that you do not help him. Like he's going to hurt you. I was like, well, I have nothing to lose. I lost my son. And so if that's how I die, that's how I die. And so I, told him he could come with me and I would help him. And the first thing I did was give him a hug. And I said, I love you. And that's how I start my first approach with each and every one of them. And I've slowly but surely gotten each one of them after. What we do is, like right now what we're doing is I started investing in these mobile homes, these little tiny camper homes that can be pulled with a bicycle. And we put them in a transitional place and work on them. And what I do is every day I give them love and hugs until they trust me. And the first thing I ask them after I've established a relationship is, do you trust me? And they say yes. And I tell them, this is paranoia. It's not real. There's nobody chasing you out to get you.
So you do some CBT with them.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. And they trust me enough to go get on medication, and we have Department of Mental Health right there. And so now Johnny's at the point where he said to me yesterday, I'm ready for permanent housing. I'm ready to be
all right,
in a place.
We
need more transitional places.
So some place to get them stabilized and in their right heads, so they're willing to go to.
Yes, because you can't take them you couldn't take Johnny half naked, or no, actually butt naked, and try and put him in a home with other people and get along, Johnny. Like I know you want to kill everybody right now, but just get along. It's not logical. And
so I'm trying to. If you had Eric Garcetti's brain and you could impose your will on him, what would you have him do?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I am doing, and this is my dream. And people told me I was nuts, but I've already started it. I purchased my very first mobile home on wheels for
here?
Transition.
For Los Angeles? Or
no, I started it in Palm Springs.
But what are we going to do here?
Okay, but that's what I want to do here. Now,
You're going to need 1,000 of those.
Exactly.
And then they're going to have to be like street safe, which is hard. We think, look where those people are. They're on freeway off-ramps and things.
Right. I mean, but it has to be in a community. It has to be in a community, like in my community at the Path. And this is already being done in Santa Monica, mind you, because that's where my program is there too. But this is already being done. It's a community. It's not just a shelter. They have the meds there. They have their therapy. They have programs.
So it sounds like the model. Are you hearing what I'm hearing? Because I'm hearing like it's sort of like a state hospital, but without the prison appearance. Maybe even no walls.
Well, and remember these shelters and the housing that they're proposing. That's all it is. There's no support there. There's no doctors. There's no medication. There's no therapy.
I talked to a guy on the radio once, and he called in. And he goes, "I was homeless, and I know exactly what homeless people need. I was there for a year, and I got off. And now I'm driving a truck." He goes, "You need You need like a place, right? We can go, and there's like doctors and nurses and vocational rehab people, and we can stay for 6 months. That's a hospital. You're talking about a hospital.
No, but
but I think you're describing more of a transitional center.
Right. Okay. So
not even a living center necessarily.
When I get people, and I'm using Johnny as an example but I've had other success stories, but he's my most current. So we take him from the street, right? He comes to us, and we have him in a temporary place. They like small, closed. That's why they like bathrooms, in park bathrooms.
Is this your trailer thing? Are these your trailers?
Yes.
Okay.
And
would you put a divider and be able to keep 2 of them in there, kind of thing, 2 at a time, 3 at a time?
See. That's why they're so small and compact, because
just one.
Just one, and they like that tight knit feeling. It's something about security. They need to feel secure, and then
would that be adequate? I'm just spitballing here to issue them that bike and trailer and leave it up to them to come back. And
I don't leave it up to them.
Would that ever be a way of doing it? Because we have a million people to deal with.
I don't know. That's why I'm always saying it needs to be a community.
Okay. Because
we're a community, and I have staff. And if I can't be there for them, there's always somebody there for them. These are people that, I hate to say it, but they can't really be left on their own.
Right.
I mean, you can't expect them to just go, oh, it's time to take my meds.
Yeah, but the legal system, though, won't let anybody impose anything on them.
But why can't they do what I'm doing?
Right. I'm with you.
We approach them. I have a guy, Nate, and he doesn't mind me sharing his story. I found him on a street corner, laying there, half dead. And I did the same thing to him. I went up to him and I said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "My name's Mia." And I hugged him and I said, "I love you." Those are the first 2 things I do. I hug them and I say, "I love you." And for some reason, I gain trust with them, and sure, some of them scream and yell and tell me, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. But it doesn't deter me.
So what you're asking, how would you formalize that? Because I do emergency medicine and addiction medicine. I'm out in Riverside, Fontana, that area, right near you. So,
we're Riverside County, yeah.
Right. One of my frustrations, and this is another county that I sort of consulted with, there's such piecemeal treatment. And you're saying you've got a great way. First, you have to gain their trust.
You have a model.
Yes.
But you're also clinical. I mean, you also have mental health
personnel,
training, personnel, and also addiction treatment. And what you're saying, it sounded like when I mentioned meth, you're like, well, some of the addiction people come in and go, the drug's the problem. And then mental health comes in and it's...
But the point is you're sophisticated about these things.
Right.
So
you gain their trust, but you're not just, I love them. And
you're not nobody. You know what you're talking. You know what you can assess what's going on. You get what's going on.
Yeah, so when I bring them back to... now I could tell you this because I'm sure you won't turn me in, but... So I just...
No, this is true.
And this is... we're quiet about this. So transitional... housing is key. So my studio in Palm Springs is not, meant to house people, but of course I can't turn them away. So yesterday I just bought my first, mobile home on wheels, but that's because I've been, holding them kind of like a holding cell in my studio. But that's not, won't work for too long. It's not permanent. So I had to think of something other than that. And that's when I came up with the mobile trailer homes. But yeah, so from there, I get them next door to get their medication, to see a therapist, to see a doctor. And then next door to that is the shelter. So I'm hoping that once they get on their medication, once they start to have clarity, they can get into the shelter and eventually get into permanent housing. So it's a process.
But the treatment, I see piecemeal treatment. I was talking to another county, and they were saying, well, we have these addiction clinics, but their social workers are from the psych model. And we need to educate them in the addiction model, and everything's so. And they're adjudicated people many times. That's not the way you want to get people with mental health and addiction problems into.
You're zeroing in on something that I've complained about forever in mental health treatment, which is epistemological.
Right.
Everybody has their own epistemology. It's like, no, understand the whole deal and apply what's appropriate to that patient.
Right. I'd want to get you and me and a psychiatrist, or you and Drew and a psychiatrist that see this as a whole multidimensional.
Multidimensional, not one size fits all.
Right.
Right. And that's the problem with I have with the whole Measure H.
But it's somehow it's the job market and the housing market. That's the problem. If housing was less, we'd have a homeless problem.
And I feel like what they're doing is they're just sticking them into, like, for instance, our student Johnny did receive a voucher from LA because when they have leftover ones, they can give to Riverside. You know that. So he got one, and it was 20 miles away. It's all the way in Indio. And he says, I can't leave you guys. And he would leave his medication, his doctors, his support system, we have programs, we have boxing, we have art, we have meditation, we have yoga.
But let me go back to solving the homeless problem. Right. So what is if you had Eric Garcetti's brain,
that's what I'm saying.
What goes into Eric Garcetti's brain? 1,000 little places like this? Or one big institution, or neighborhood, whatever? How do we do it?
Well, what I'll tell you, because I talked to Mark a lot about this.
Argos.
Yeah, he has a big interest in the homeless, and his office is downtown. So
does he understand what you're telling him?
Oh my God,
he gets it. Okay,
Mark is he's probably the only one that I talk to that gets it, and because he actually deals with the homeless when he goes to work.
Sure,
he has one guy that he tells me this guy that stands on his front doorstep at work, and he has schizophrenia, and so he tells him he's assigned him a job. And I said, "Oh, what's his job?" And he said, "Well, he's security. He watches my building," and it makes him feel good.
Yeah, sure.
It makes him feel like he has purpose. Yeah. And so what he told me was I thought was a great idea. He wanted to buy was thinking about a warehouse downtown and having this community vibe. Where we have some place to house them and we have programs.
Well, now, but there's that kind of thing goes on in Skid Row. They have that center there that does all that stuff.
Yeah, I haven't been to Skid Row.
But they can't. They're just overwhelmed. They can't keep up. I mean, it's just campouts all around them because they can't meet the demand.
Right, but what about putting more money instead of focusing on the housing and put more money into the mental health aspect of it?
Oh, no argument here from either of us. But the question is, you're espousing a very specific model, though, which is a way of capturing them, containing them. I don't know that communalizing them and then treating them.
We have to get a lot more. See, here's the problem that I run into when I go to the public hearings, and so it's not just me; it's like other citizens and even Skid Row people come there and talk, and what they say is these people that work on Skid Row, Department of Mental Health, they don't even leave their office. They never go out to socialize with them, to talk to them.
They're probably too busy, to be fair to them.
Well, you know what? Then, hey, hire people that can be, in the field, that are actually out there with the people, because that's what I do. And of course, I work for myself, so it's a little bit easier.
So there's one big solution: more field workers.
Yes, get them out there, gaining trust with the people, getting to know them.
More field workers, and then more of these, some sort of mobile capturing, living something.
More of the transitional housing.
Yeah,
but what about the patients' rights and the homeless
advocacy group?
I'm not violating anybody's rights.
No.
But what I'm saying is, I see a big
I gain
problem.
their trust first.
No, what I'm saying is the people that control the money and that say they're for homeless rights, I don't think they have any understanding of the mental health issues.
They have no idea.
Right, so I'm saying you have an understanding. I'm not.
So what do we do with them?
Right.
You mean with the lawmakers and the
do-gooders? It's almost like the
Department of Mental Health.
Violence is a gun problem. It's much more complex.
And that's another thing
you're addressing
I really hate.
Complexity.
This is another issue I hate. Is it's always the focus on the guns.
I just was railing to Drew.
Do they ever bring up mental health?
On CNN today, Fareed Zakaria was saying, let's drop this mental health discussion. Let's look at the real problem, which is guns. And that's a guy that I have no
the real problem is guns.
He said, let's focus on the gun violence and gun control.
Let me tell you something. I am so against guns because I was raised with them, and I'm really against them. But I don't advocate that focus. My boyfriend owns a ton of guns, and I certainly doubt he's ever going to pick one up and shoot someone. Because he doesn't have any mental health issues. But somebody with mental health issues
could easily.
Well, yeah. You know Dave Tang out in the ER at Eisenhower?
No.
Okay. He's tactical emergency medicine, which is a whole area of my field that deals with being on a SWAT team as a doctor. And no greater respect will you have for the proper use of guns and stopping violence. But anyway, what I'm saying is you have a vision, and it integrates approach to bringing the patient in, gaining trust, and then it's the treatment piece.
And there are advocacy groups, and I know them all. I understand them. They don't want to force medication, and I don't have to do that with any of my students. Not one time have I ever forced medication on anyone. I've gained their trust enough to where they actually go voluntarily.
What if there was to be a little more forcefulness to the medication? So you at least get to the patient the point that they clear and go, oh, okay.
See, I love that idea, Drew. I really do. But again, like, you're going to fall into this trap with the advocacy groups that are so anti-medication. I'm pro-medication. Because lack of medication is what killed my son.
Of course.
Right.
Medication saved my life. You know, I was diagnosed with OCD long ago, and I tell you, I couldn't live without it.
What do you take? Because I probably need some of that.
Mm-hmm. You do.
It's great.
We'll talk later. But that's what just drives me crazy, because it's like in the emergency department. Now, there's something called public health emergency medicine. I always rail on about this, but it's bringing community people in at the nexus of, you have mental health patients and you have addiction patients, but there's such a lack of that. And there are demonstration projects in places like Boston University, have programs, Johns Hopkins, and where you have intervention, prevention efforts that are focused in the emergency department. And it's somebody like you coming in and hooking up with somebody that has a need. So,
right. You know, the other thing that I really can't stand is about these groups that are so anti-medication, not to go off topic, but is their refusal to believe that the brain can actually fall ill. And I don't understand that, because the brain, you know, as you know, obviously, is the most complex organ in the body. I mean, how do you expect all the chemicals to be flowing at the right pace at the right time? And, you know, it's just ludicrous. Like, I just don't understand why that's so hard to accept for people.
Well, what about the origins of mental health and sanitariums? And Drew has a big interest in what went on in the 40s and 50s with... people did horrible things.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where there's still a backlash against that.
Right. But how have you been to the mental health facilities here in LA lately?
Not in a couple of years.
Have you seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Yes.
That's what it looks like. So I'm not saying, like, let's shut these places down like they did back then. How about making them better? Mm-hmm. How about when you walk in, the first thing you notice is the filth, the stench. How about cleaning them up, making them like a nice environment for the patients? How about some love and some nurturing or some care, some attention? You cannot find staff anywhere. They're like, you don't even know that they work there. Like, they're all gone hiding, like on their cell phones and doing other things rather than communicating with them.
Well, what strikes me is the balance that's lost. What happened in the 60s, they let everybody out when they got, Thorazine, or they were not locked up, and predicated on they're going to be medicated and they're going to become functional with the medication. Then they're out, and now there's this whole movement. It's like, I have a right not to be medicated. I listen to some of these reports, and it's almost like to me, it's almost, I shouldn't say PETA, but it's like animals. An animal has the same rights as a human being. And it's like, okay, I'm against animal cruelty, but there's certain priorities, and I think saying somebody that's in a schizophrenic state, maybe they have their own reality, it's just as normal in some plane of existence as yours. That's what I hear sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would show when my son would go off his meds and he would end up homeless, I would sometimes videotape him, and I would show him after, and he would just start crying.
Yeah, afterwards they're all, oh, thank you for getting me straight. Yes.
My son one time broke down, and he said, thank you, Mom. He said, thank you, because he is just, my son was a popular kid, very good looking, handsome, charismatic. So to see himself like that, he was like, thank God.
Okay, so I had this crazy idea. And just like you have an advance directive that you could say, this is what happens when I can't make a decision for myself.
Right.
Why not have
a
psychiatric advance directive where when they're in that state, they say, okay, if I get like this, then you have the right to medicate.
Right, and that's what my son did give me conservatorship.
And I may get be a little naive too, but I don't think they use enough long-acting, oil-based intramuscular. They're expensive, but they're not using enough of that.
You're right. See, they are using, there's Invega, which is an antipsychotic, which is a shot that they give, that my son was taking.
Yeah.
Now, I told him in the hospital that he has to have the shot. Well, it's too expensive.
Yeah. That's where I start to rail.
I have a patient right now, and this guy's in his 50s, became psychotic using heroin. Okay, and I don't know if you've seen that, but to me, anyway, he was put on Invega, and he would come in and say to me, I need my Invega, and the system didn't cover it.
Yeah.
Because
Invega is very expensive. They tried to give you Risperdal.
That's what they did, and it
doesn't work. It didn't work for my son either.
He said to me, I'm going to the effing 5150. I'm going to the ER, and I'm going to get 5150 because I know they'll give me. It's just,
What's in Invega? What's the?
Invega's
it's a long-acting antipsychotic.
It's just its own antipsychotic. It's not. There's something else in there.
It's a newer generation.
Newer generation.
Yeah,
right,
I think.
But it's a monthly.
Risperdal is the. Risperdal is the
generic.
The generic.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and so a lot. So DMH, they don't want to.
It's a risperidone of sorts.
Yeah.
Right, but it's not
relative risperidone.
Right.
But Invega is so much better.
Yeah. Well, I even just use long-acting risperidone. How come they don't do that? I don't see that enough anymore.
No,
I mean, it's just so.
I think Prolixin's better than.
Well, that's an oldie, but
right. But I've seen patients. I think
look, there's IM Haldol too out there. It exists. There's stuff out there.
I can't believe. Yeah, and there's still facilities that use Haldol.
Oh yeah, ERs.
Yeah, is that crazy?
After droperidol got black boxed, and we used to use droperidol all the time for helping people calm down.
Really? What do you get? What black box did you get?
The cardiac stuff, and then. But so why isn't your model? Replicator? Why don't you have a?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Why aren't they listening to you?
You have to remember that the city doesn't like me. Although I do have a couple. I do have a couple cheerleaders. Janice Hahn, who I love, Supervisor Hahn, has been so supportive, and Dr. Sharon from Department than you.
Also,
but they don't like me because I'm constantly exposing them.
Garagos is another thorn in the side of the system there.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure but maybe Mark and me together can do something.
I know.
So let me help you out, or Bruce can help out.
Yeah.
Let's try to do something, because I drive around every day thinking about this.
Does Garagos understand what you're saying? Because
yes. I can't tell you.
Not the way we do. We've been working this show for 25 years.
First, let me tell you, Mark Garagos was the attorney for my son's case, and did a tremendous job. But I am probably the biggest pain in the ass to Mark. Like, I swear, like, I call him all the time, like, Mark, I got this great idea. Like, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I'm just so passionate about it. And he's just so sweet because he's like, yeah, okay, that's a great idea. But, yeah, he's like.
Well, he's good at putting together fundraisers and stuff.
So Mark actually donated a lot of money to he loves my idea. He donated a lot of money for me to get this going.
Okay.
And so he is why we were able to purchase our first home on wheels, and we're going to order many more.
This is for Palm Springs, though, right?
Yeah, but I'm trying to get LA County on board.
If you could just get a few people to do it here and demonstrate it here, maybe you get something going. Then get an article in the paper and
so
get this going.
Brings me to my last topic. Is yes, that's what we're doing. We have our fundraiser at Mark's restaurant Tenny on December 2nd.
We'll be there. Yes, we'll be
there. Awesome.
You might win.
Can you what? Get a what?
Win another BMW.
Oh yeah, she won a car at the last one.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, you have to come.
We're coming.
And Sugar Ray Leonard is.
But let's
the host.
Start doing it and have a few people actually do your model, like do a little pilot and then you get a story about it in the paper, and then you got something going.
So I'm trying. So a couple of LA morning shows, did do stories on our Step Up model in Santa Monica. But what I'm trying to get this is in downtown LA.
Get in downtown, but I think this little portable thing is sort of clever and interesting and sort of story worthy that you could get a bit of press on it.
Thank you. I think so too, and I think that once they see the success, then they'll realize that we're onto something.
Well, count me in, please.
Yes,
and Mark is a dear friend of ours too, by the way. So,
you know what? Mark is our honoree.
Fine.
And Sugar Ray Leonard is the host, and he'll be presenting. Yeah, he'll be presenting Mark with the award. Huh? We didn't get invited. No, you're invited. Yes.
I can't afford the tickets. Can I be a server? I'm a poor doctor.
Food's good there, Tenny.
Yes,
so
it is.
Where do you want people to go? Is there a website?
So yes, to get tickets
and more about your project and stuff too. So go ahead.
To get tickets and to get information on the project, everything is on MiaSt.Foundation.org.
Okay, and St. John is there STJ no period?
Yes, MIASTJOHN Foundation.org.
Okay, .org. It's Mica St. John Foundation. We're going to put that on the website.
Yes.
And listen, this is a. If I had sort of top 5 things that really bother me in our world, this is certainly in the top 5. At least here in Los Angeles and in New York City, where I spend a lot of my time.
Yeah,
there's a level of human suffering going on there that's unconscionable, and it's become politicized, and they're not listening to people who actually know what to do and what this is.
Right.
And it makes me insanely angry.
Yeah, I'm having more of a problem with, it seems like it's getting worse, is patients that do have psychiatric issues and addictions, getting them into programs that allow them to stay on their meds in the program. I have programs saying to me, oh, no, they can't be on any psych meds.
On their addiction programs?
They're dual diagnosis.
Oh, that's insane.
I hate that.
I know
epistemology,
like
epistemological polarization has no place in mental health.
But it's getting worse.
Oh, can I tell you one thing? Like,
you know what that is? That's Suboxone.
If they could do,
everyone's getting all weirded out about Suboxone, and so
what they could do is another idea is about the field workers at my studio in Palm Springs. It's mandatory that all of my employees are out in the field looking for the homeless, and you don't have to go far.
No.
But talking to them, helping them, making friends. That is their first job, is to make friends and gain their trust. So that could be something that LA implements.
Yeah, field workers. But then I like to love your little units that you can sort of transition them into something in their little.
Yeah, it has to be walking distance because you can't expect them to hop in their car.
All right, Mia, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Maybe this will be the beginning of something, and we'll see you on December 2nd.
Yes,
Bruce may or may not be there. He's walking at the. He's walking. But really, congratulations on all his work, too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
If you didn't know already, we have a YouTube channel. Go to YouTube/DRDREW, YouTube/Dr. Drew. See the live videos and podcasts there. Subscribe, and you'll get it when we go live. Last week, we met with recovery author Russell Brandt and did something called the Live Talk LA. He and I were on stage together, and that will be available for you all to see. Find the channel, get the videos today, but also be sure to download the podcast and listen to them as well. We appreciate your listenership. We appreciate your support. And we'll keep this thing going as long as you want us to.
Remember, you can find all these podcasts at drdrew.com. The Dr. Drew podcast, the This Life podcast with Dr. Drew and Bob Forrest, and the Adam and Drew podcast, which is available 5 days a week. Find them all on iTunes and rate us 5 stars. Subscribe and get it first. And if you're really happy, click on the Amazon banner at drdrew.com to help support the show. We'll thank you for it. If you join the email list via drdrew.com/contact, we'll send you a weekly Infusion newsletter with Dr. Drew's news. We're so grateful when you get in touch. We read all your emails and we'll bring you the subject matter you want to hear about.
Well, one of the great parts about working in recovery is seeing former patients successfully move on. And I've had patients that have come up to me years later and shake my hand and say, you know what, sometimes people are kicked out of treatment. And many of these folks move on and become mental health professionals themselves. And, of course, the field of psychology is vast. The need for competent practitioners is huge. If you're considering this rewarding career, I urge you to consider the California School of Professional Psychology at Alliant University. Now, I've known them for a long time at Alliant University. I've spoken at their past events. It was founded in 1969. It's boasts an alumni network of nearly 50,000 people worldwide. And Alliant has fostered many of today's mental health pioneers, authors, and advocates. CSPP at Alliant University hosts both on-ground and online programs in business psychology, marriage and family therapy, clinical counseling. They also offer APA-accredited doctoral programs in clinical psychology that can allow for specialization in child psychology, clinical forensic psychology, and integrated psychology. And the faculty is crazy. It's made up of leaders and historical figures like Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, Viktor Frankl, some of the true fathers of modern psychology. For more information, and I worked alongside of these students as well, by the way, in the clinical setting, as well as having lectured at the institution. So for more on the California School of Professional Psychology, CSPP, at Alliant, click the Alliant banner on our website or visit Alliant, ALLIANT.edu, alliant.edu.